Victor Carter held a deep reverence for silence. In the precise, strategic realm of high-stakes commerce, silence held immense power. It was the interval between discussions, the moment of stillness before a conclusive proposal, the subtle acknowledgement that finalized million-dollar agreements. For Victor, silence represented mastery. Yet the stillness within his abode felt distinct. It lacked power. Instead, it felt burdensome and lifeless. The sort that lingered in the nooks of the home like dust that had long been neglected, particularly in the music room. He had not entered that room in more than 3 years, not since the day following Nora's funeral. The memory of her touch on the piano keys remained vivid in his mind, even though the physical traces had long since disappeared. Every morning, she would play, the melodies weaving through the halls like a second heartbeat. Elias would recline on the soft carpet, eyes shut, whispering the notes as if they were hidden truths. Then the incident occurred, and a hush enveloped the scene. Victor had filled the quiet with structure, with schedules, support, rituals, breakfast at 8 o'clock, physical therapy at 10 o'clock, reading time, nap time, medication. He constructed a bastion of order, aiming to protect Elias from sorrow, maybe even from recollection. Yet sorrow had a tendency to seep through the fissures. And Elias, in spite of all the planning, had turned more silent than any space within the home, until today. The sound halted Victor in his tracks as he traversed the hallway en route to a call with his legal team. A piano, a solitary note, not arbitrary, not a trial, but intentional, deliberate. He stood still, realizing that entry into that room was strictly forbidden. The team was under firm directives, particularly Camilla. She adhered to the rules meticulously, and yet the melody drifted along the hallway like a secret too daring to overlook. He faced the door, caught in a moment of uncertainty, as if he were either stepping forward or being drawn in by the echoing sound. The room was softly lit, its lofty windows draped in linen curtains that softened the glow of the sun. Dust lingered in the atmosphere, glistening as if it held the secrets of a bygone era. And there she stood, Camilla, neither tidying nor organizing, but undeniably present. She positioned herself on the piano bench, her back straight and fingers ready. Her eyes were shut, not out of feigned emotion, but in complete submission. She failed to notice Victor standing at the door. She didn't notice Elias either, seated in his wheelchair just to her right, observing her with a sense of wonder that Victor hadn't witnessed in his son for years. Victor remained still, silent, and utterly motionless. Camilla played not as an entertainer, but as if she were rediscovering the essence of emotion. Her touch began softly, with a hint of uncertainty, but gradually blossomed into assurance. The tune was unknown, gentle, melancholic, delicate. It coiled through the space like an inquiry lingering in silence. As the final notes faded away, Elias let out a deep breath, as though he had been suspended in anticipation throughout the entire performance. Camilla inquired softly, her gaze still averted from Victor. "Did you sense it?" Elias gave a subtle nod. "I felt a comforting warmth," he murmured, reminiscent of the times when Mom was around. He left it incomplete. Victor felt a constriction in his throat. At last, Camilla pivoted and caught sight of him. Her expression revealed no surprise, no remorse, just a calm, unwavering recognition. "In silence, I understand this may come as a surprise, yet it is unfolding regardless." Victor advanced, measured and deliberate. "What is happening here?" he inquired, his tone subdued, laced with barely contained disapproval. Camilla stood up, her hands gracefully folded in front of her. "We were uncovering something anew," she stated with ease. "This room is off limits," he declared. "Indeed," she acknowledged, "and so does sorrow, yet it arrives regardless." That struck deeper than it ought to have. Elias squirmed in his seat, a sense of unease washing over him. "Dad, I requested her to join in the game." Victor gazed at his son. His face was vibrant, and his voice carried a buoyant quality. He hadn't encountered that in quite some time. "Since when do you care about the piano?" Victor asked, his tone cutting through the air. Elias flinched. I felt this way for as long as I can remember. I just didn't believe it was something I was permitted to pursue any longer. Once more, the silence was shattered by Camilla. Mr. Carter possesses a keen sense of curiosity. He inquires about notes, rhythm, and the way sound travels through wood and air. He listens not just with ears, but with an open heart. She's responsible for maintaining the household, Victor interjected. I was a pianist, she said, steady yet resolute, long before I became anything else. Victor's face took on a steely resolve. So, what brings you to this floor-cleaning duty instead of performing on a stage? Camilla met his gaze, unwavering. Life doesn't seek approval before snatching things away, she remarked. Victor sensed the breath escape from his chest. He cast another glance at his son. Elias' eyes held no plea. They held a sense of optimism, subtly challenging his father to perceive the world through his eyes. Please don't take this away from me, Elias whispered. Victor parted his lips, only to seal them once more. He found it impossible to utter the word no. Not to that voice, not to his son who had hardly spoken in days, weeks, months. He glanced at Camilla, asking her to teach him, but not within these walls. She gave a single nod naturally. As she softly nudged Elias out of the room, Victor lingered in the background. He gazed at the piano. The keys showed signs of gentle wear. The ivory bore some chips in various spots. The bench retained the subtle outline of a person who once occupied it each morning, lending a sense of vitality to this house. He took a seat. He remained seated, hands resting away from the keys. For the first time in years, he embraced the silence as something new, not merely an absence, but a fresh start. Elias Carter had never laid his fingers on a piano key until the moment Camilla Reyes allowed him to experience the music it could create. They chose not to go back to the music room. Victor had made that unmistakably clear. Instead, Camilla arranged a small keyboard in the sunroom, beside the window that offered a view of the garden. It was a modest instrument, merely 61 keys, made of plastic and a touch out of tune. Yet for Elias it represented a gateway. Camilla began her journey without scales. She neither offered him a book nor insisted he sit up straight, nor did she reprimand him for how he held his wrist. She positioned his hand on the keys with care, leading his fingers as one might lead a sightless traveler through a dense woodland. Press, she murmured. Let go of your thoughts and embrace your emotions. The initial sound was cautious, followed by another. The tremor coursed through the plastic shell, reaching his palm, ascending his arm, and settling in his chest. He grinned. It was the first genuine smile she had witnessed from him. During the initial week, their conversations were sparse. Elias possessed a natural quietness, and Camilla held a deep respect for that trait. Instead, she allowed the music to convey her thoughts. She performed gentle melodies, a soothing lullaby, a traditional folk tune, the initial notes of a Chopin nocturne. As Elias absorbed the sounds, his eyes were shut, and his body inclined gently toward the keys. Victor observed from afar. He remained outside the room, frequently lingering in the hallway, just beyond sight. He found himself in a situation he couldn't quite grasp, yet it was impossible to overlook. His son was evolving, not swiftly, not overtly, but gradually, like the gentle unfolding of a flower in early spring. One afternoon, as golden light pooled across the floor, Elias inquired, "What made you stop playing?" Camilla hesitated. She meticulously wiped the keyboard with a soft cloth, a ritual she couldn't quite abandon. "It was simply too painful," she remarked. Elias refrained from inquiring further. He merely inclined his head. He grasped the essence of that silence. The following day, he revealed to her a tune he had conjured in his mind. It may have been awkward, yet it possessed a certain spirit. Camilla absorbed the information carefully, then replayed it with subtle changes. "Did you create this?" Elias gave a nonchalant shrug. "In my dream, she wore a smile. Then let's bring it to life." They started crafting their piece a few measures at a time. At times, Elias would softly hum concepts, while other moments found him pressing keys until inspiration struck. Camilla adeptly filled in the gaps, maintaining a respectful distance. She allowed his creativity to take the reins. As the weeks went by, the melody blossomed, and so did Elias. Victor observed. During a dinner one evening, Elias discussed key signatures and time signatures. F major evoked the essence of morning, while D minor captured the mood of rain. Victor absorbed the conversation, captivated yet feeling somewhat lost. "He's not like the others," Victor remarked to Camilla one evening while she tidied up the table. "No," she replied, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "He is evolving into the person he was destined to become." Victor remained silent. What truly frightened him was not the music nor Camilla. Yet, the understanding that he played no role in this change, that his son was finding completeness through the influence of another. On a drizzly afternoon, Elias requested to perform a piece for his father. Victor paused for a moment, then gave a slight nod. Camilla wheeled the keyboard into the living room. Elias sat, hands ready, a subtle quiver in his fingers. He performed the composition they had been working on. It wasn't flawless. There were a couple of off notes and a few pauses that lingered a bit too long. Yet it possessed a soul and it included him. As he concluded, an eerie stillness enveloped the room. Victor applauded, first with one clap, then with another. It lacked theatrics, yet it held authenticity. Elias radiated joy. Later that evening, Victor found himself standing outside Camilla's quarters. "Thank you," he expressed. Camilla regarded him, her gaze enigmatic. "Hold off on the gratitude for now." "Why not indeed? The challenging phase is yet to begin." Victor was still in the dark, not yet grasping the situation. However, Victor Carter was not the type to linger on what had already transpired. He constructed barriers against it, with precision and intention, each accomplishment standing as a testament to his effort. The future unfolded with a sense of security, marked by certainty and crafted through careful planning and oversight. Yet, even the strongest intellects can show signs of vulnerability. And recently, his had started to fracture. The journey began with the melodies. He was unaware of how deeply he had longed for the melody of a piano filling his home until Elias started his daily practice. Initially, it was gentle, hesitant. Then it expanded not merely in size but in assurance. The tunes meandered through the corridors, slipping beneath doors, awakening memories within Victor that he had long buried. Now so distant he scarcely recognized them as his own. On a restless night, he discovered himself standing outside the sunroom. The door stood ajar, a soft light from the petite lamp spilling forth and stretching elongated shadows across the wall. Within the confines of the room, Camilla positioned herself at the keyboard. Elias had retired for the night. She was performing a piece unlike their usual works, something more ancient and profound. He identified the work. Nora had always cherished it above all else. The revelation struck him with the force of icy water. He entered the room. Camilla continued her play without pause. She glanced up for a moment, recognized his presence with a subtle nod, and carried on. As the last note lingered in the air and then disappeared, she shifted her gaze towards him. Camilla gave a slight nod. "Elias mentioned it to me." Victor settled onto the window bench, the cushion yielding under his weight. "Do you long for it?" she inquired. He hesitated before responding. He finally said, "I long for the part of me that could hear it without falling apart." Camilla remained silent. She gazed at him, her eyes gentle and understanding. After a prolonged pause, he inquired, "What truly led you to cease performing?" Camilla inclined her head just a bit, then shifted her focus to the keys. "Once upon a time there was a boy," she began. "It's not quite a tale of romance, not in the traditional sense. He was a young student, just 12 years old, full of potential yet delicate. He brought to mind a hint of Elias." Victor sat rigidly, his hands firmly intertwined in his lap as he absorbed every word. "He was afflicted by a condition," she elaborated, "one that was degenerative. We were both aware that his time was finite, yet his passion for music remained unwavering. It served as his refuge, his act of defiance. I guided him daily, and then one day he simply didn't appear. Her voice faltered for a brief instant. She averted her gaze, her eyelids fluttering gently. Following the funeral, I found myself unable to approach a piano. Each attempt echoed with his voice rather than the melody. Thus, I departed from the city, the spotlight, my identity. Victor let out a slow breath. And now, he inquired. Camilla offered a subtle smile. Elias brings to my attention that music transcends mere performance. It revolves around being there, around restoration. He nodded, a gesture more for his own contemplation than in response to her. They lingered in quietude for a moment. The following morning, Victor caught Elias off guard by inquiring about the work they were crafting. In which key is it set? He inquired during breakfast. Elias shone brightly. It began in a minor key, but now it transitions into C major. Camilla describes it as transitioning from darkness into brightness. Victor beamed, a genuine smile. For the first time, he felt a sense of belonging in his own home. Later that week, Elias extended an invitation to Victor to join one of their sessions. He paused for a moment, yet ultimately consented. He observed as Camilla led his son in exploring phrasing and dynamics, softly adjusting his posture and fostering a sense of nuance. She embodied the essence of a teacher, not merely imparting knowledge, but igniting a spark of understanding. At one moment, Elias tripped over a note and let out a sigh of exasperation. Camilla let out a soft laugh. Even the greats had to begin their journey at some point. Elias lifted his gaze. Have you ever had the chance to meet him? She chuckled, truly chuckled. And Victor sensed a change in the atmosphere of the room. It was bright. The warmth enveloped the surroundings. That evening, Victor found himself in solitude within the music room. He carefully opened the aged cabinet and retrieved one of Nora's folders filled with sheet music. The parchment had taken on a yellow hue, its edges delicately curling inward. He positioned it on the stand, settled onto the bench and struck a key. The audio was muted. The piano was not in tune. Yet it held no significance. It marked the start of something new. The house had transformed, though not in any striking manner. The walls retained their pale ivory hue, while the furniture remained elegantly uninviting. Yet the air carried a new quality, a buoyancy, as though a long-closed window had at last swung open, inviting the dust to drift away. Elias was the first to notice it. One morning, he awoke to discover the sunlight gently spilling across the hardwood floor. The stillness of the home transformed from a void into a realm of potential. Victor, as well, had begun to observe details. The way Elias beamed while he played, even when he missed the notes. The subtle command in Camilla's hands as she illustrated a phrase. Her fingers glided over the keyboard, as if each movement recalled every stage she had ever graced. And oddly, the music started to seep into his office, into the kitchen, into the areas of himself he'd sealed off. It was not always a straightforward journey. At times, Elias would come to a standstill in the midst of a melody. His hands trembled, confidence wavering, as Camilla softly placed her hand over his. It's not about achieving flawlessness, she would softly say. It revolves around the art of conveying thoughts and feelings. Express what resonates within you, rather than conforming to expectations of how you should sound. Victor observed those moments from the corridor. He always listened without interruption. He was also acquiring knowledge. They were crafting a piece now. It bore no title as of yet, merely a name hastily scrawled in pencil at the top of the page. For her, Camilla never inquired about who she was destined to be. There was no necessity for her to do so. On certain days, Elias would present a fresh phrase, a small assortment of notes, and Camilla would respond with a thoughtful nod, experiment with it, and then make subtle adjustments. There, she would declare, now it comes alive. On some days, Camilla would revisit a piece she had composed long ago, a melody from a distant past, while Elias would weave in a counterpoint. Their concepts intertwined like strands in a tapestry, weaving together a creation neither could have crafted independently. Victor started to participate with them more frequently. Initially, he just lingered close by, perusing emails while one ear was attuned to the music. Then he began to linger more. On a quiet afternoon, Camilla extended a pencil to him. "It's your moment now," she remarked. Victor gave a slight shake of his head. "I don't create." "You do now," Elias said with a smile. Victor chuckled. A genuine, unexpected sound that seemed unfamiliar in his own throat. He hastily jotted down a note. It was awkward, yet it belonged to him. It was performed. It remained. And just like that, it ceased to belong to Elias or Camilla or even Victor. It became theirs. That evening, Camilla lingered long into the night. The outside air carried a refreshing chill, with the initial whispers of autumn weaving through the twilight. Victor escorted her to the entrance. He typically did not. "You've achieved something truly extraordinary," he remarked with him. Camilla pivoted to meet his gaze. "I offered him nothing that he didn't already possess within himself." He nodded slowly, lost in contemplation. "Yet, he claimed you assisted him in discovering it." She cast her gaze downward for a brief moment before lifting it once more. Her eyes glimmered, not with sorrow, but with a depth of understanding that spoke of age and experience. "So did you," she murmured softly. He found himself at a loss for words. He slowly pushed the door open. For the first time, Camilla chose not to simply walk out. She turned, gazed at him and said, "Victor, the child you're nurturing? He's no longer enduring. He is starting to truly embrace life. Hold on to that." He observed her traverse the stone path, her silhouette gradually dissolving into the twilight. 2 days later, Elias inquired about the possibility of recording the piece. "It's not meant for anyone else," he remarked, "only for us, to ensure we remember how it felt." Camilla beamed with delight. "That's precisely the reason we create music." A modest recorder was set up, quite unassuming. Elias sat in his chair, with Camilla beside him and Victor positioned just behind, lingering in the background yet unmistakably felt. Elias commenced. The initial note was gentle, followed by the next. Camilla joined in, intertwining her melody with his, like a memory embracing a dream. And then arrived the section crafted by Victor. He was unaware of how deeply he had poured himself into those 4 bars until he listened to them resonate in the air. They had their flaws, yet they embodied honesty, authenticity, and humanity. As the last note lingered in the air and then vanished, silence enveloped the room. The stillness held a reverent quality. Then Elias turned, his eyes wide and brimming with emotion. "Can we call it home?" he inquired. Camilla turned her gaze toward Victor. Victor gulped, then gave a slight nod. "Indeed," he replied, "that seems accurate." And it did, the moment Elias chose not to participate. It wasn't driven by defiance. It stemmed from apprehension. He lingered in the sunroom, the keyboard awaiting his touch, his hands resting gently in his lap. Camilla stood by his side, quiet yet undeniably there. She sensed the change. Something was different. "Are you feeling unwell?" she inquired softly. He shook his head in disbelief. "Did you rest well?" A moment of stillness, followed by another tremor. Camilla refrained from pressing the issue. With a graceful motion, she extended her hand toward the small metronome resting on the table and wound it carefully. The gentle ticking permeated the stillness, reminiscent of raindrops dancing against a window pane. Elias recoiled. "Shut it down," he instructed. With a strained voice, she halted the ticking. He glanced upward, and there it was, a quiver in his gaze, reminiscent of the water's surface disturbed by a stone's descent. "I envisioned the mishap," he murmured. Camilla remained still. She was taking me to a recital. The rain fell steadily. I persistently urged her to increase the volume of the music, yet she refused. Proved to be quite the distraction. I became quite upset. I mentioned that I wasn't interested in going if I couldn't listen to the song I enjoyed. His lips quivered. We didn't reach our destination. The room was enveloped in a thick silence, reminiscent of a dense fog. At last, Camilla found her voice. "Do you believe it was your responsibility?" He remained silent. That was sufficient response. Victor discovered him hours later, nestled in his chair by the window, the keyboard still and silent. Camilla found herself in the kitchen. Her gaze lifted as Victor stepped inside. Her expression was set, ready for a clash. He recalled she stated plainly. Victor was already aware of what was needed. "I should have been there," he muttered, pouring himself a glass of water that remained untouched. "I informed Nora that I had a meeting scheduled. It was just a quarterly review, lacking urgency and significance." Camilla observed him intently. "Each of us holds a fragment of it, Victor. That's the effect of sorrow. It distributes the burden, rendering anyone unable to maintain their footing." He rested against the counter, his shoulders drooping in weariness. "He believes he is to blame." Camilla delicately rested her hand upon the marble surface. "Then you must demonstrate to him that it isn't, not through words, but through your very presence." Victor nodded, deliberately, as if shedding layers of absence with that singular gesture. That evening, Elias felt disinterested in food. Victor boldly transported his tray to the sunroom regardless. He placed it beside him, silent, simply sitting there. The stillness lingered. Then Elias lamented, "I have destroyed it all." Victor pivoted. "Actually, that's not the case. You were absent from that moment. I understand." Elias' voice trembled. "What held you back?" Victor gazed at his hands, lost in thought. "I believed there was still time ahead of me. I believed that work held greater significance than a single recital. I admit my mistake." The boy's chin quivered. "I simply wished for her to play the music. I had no idea that those words would be the final ones I spoke to her." Victor leaned in, his voice heavy with emotion. "All she wanted was for you to join in the fun. She mentioned it to me the night before your departure. He will undoubtedly stand out, Vic. He remains unaware of it for now." Tears cascaded down Elias' cheeks. Victor refrained from providing a tissue. He extended his embrace. For the first time in years, Elias allowed himself to be embraced. Camilla observed from the corridor. Her hand lingered on the doorframe, anchoring herself amidst a surge of her own recollections. The following morning, she made her way back to the sunroom. Elias had arrived ahead of time. "I wish to engage in play today," he expressed, "yet not in solitude." Camilla took her place next to him. They started at the pinnacle. The composition had evolved, a touch more languid, a hint more gentle, yet richer in depth. As they arrived at the second movement, Camilla came to a halt. "Do you have anything fresh to contribute here?" Elias raised his gaze. "Is it possible to use one of hers?" "Hers?" He gave a slight nod. "Mother's." Victor stepped into the room precisely as the words echoed through the air. He held a folder filled with sheet music. "He mentioned that he thought you might ask." He passed it to Elias. Camilla carefully opened the pages. Nora's handwriting glided across the staff lines, graceful and fluid. They performed it, and it resonated perfectly, as if it had been poised for its moment in the melody all along. On that evening, they performed it again. The entire experience, from start to finish. Victor settled next to Elias, flipping through the pages. Camilla crafted the melody. Elias took the lead. And together, they infused the house with a warmth it hadn't experienced in years. Grace is found not in the lack of suffering, but in the enduring love that exists alongside it. The invitation originated from Camilla's creative mind. There's no fanfare, no spotlight or elaborate setup. A simple letter, meticulously printed, personally delivered to a handful of neighbors, a few teachers, and the physical therapist who had supported Elias since his time in the hospital. An invitation awaits you for an evening filled with melodies, reflections, and restoration. Join us for an evening with Elias Carter this Saturday at 6 p.m. in the sunroom of the Carter home. Victor's eyebrow arched in surprise as he glanced at the draft. He expressed that he isn't prepared. Camilla responded that he isn't striving for perfection. He strives for authenticity. Victor found himself unable to dispute that point. The invitations have been dispatched. Elias made no inquiries about who would attend. He merely requested a copy of the program. Camilla streamlined the process. 1. Prelude, an original composition crafted for her. 2. Movement I, shadows 3, movement 2, light 4, movement 3, home. Underneath, a single line in italics, honoring the silent souls who always remained attentive. The sunroom sparkled after a thorough cleaning, with the glass shining brilliantly. Victor arranged for additional seating. Camilla gathered flowers not from a store, but from her own little garden tucked behind the guest house. Pure white lilies, fragrant rosemary, and delicate sprigs of lavender. Elias donned a navy blue shirt, sleeves meticulously rolled above the elbows, his hair smoothed down with anxious fingers. The chair gleamed with a polished finish. The music was printed and set upon the stand. He appeared prepared, yet he didn't sense it within himself. Victor crouched next to him, anticipation building as the first guests were about to arrive. He spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret. I once found myself standing before packed boardrooms, only to blank on what I intended to express. Elias cast his gaze upon him. What actions did you take? I revealed the truth to them. Elias gave a slight nod. The initial guests made their entrance, followed by an increasing number. At 6 o'clock, the sunroom was bustling with activity. Not crowded, but pleasantly vibrant. Recognizable figures, intriguing individuals. A handful of teary eyes and an elderly man in the corner who hadn't cracked a smile in years until Elias rolled himself closer. Victor rose to his feet and greeted the gathering with a brief yet warm address. He expressed his gratitude for their presence. He remained silent on tragedy, illness, or the time that slipped away, focusing solely on this. This evening you will experience more than just melodies. The sound of a person discovering their voice will resonate with you. He took a step back. Camilla took her place beside Elias at the keys. She turned away from the audience. Her role was not to be in the limelight. Elias commenced. Silence enveloped the room. The initial sounds emerged softly, cautious, exploring. Yet each one bore an unseen weight, a life experienced. Shadows was not a melancholic work. It was sincere. The silences between phrases carried significance. The deep chords resonated with a sense of nostalgia. Then arrived illumination, swifter, more radiant, an elevation in rhythm. Camilla infused a sense of balance, subtle and confident. The melody twirled freely, unashamed to reveal itself, and then back to where it all began. Victor had played a pivotal role in crafting that one. A handful of notes he scarcely recalled penning, now intricately crafted into a cohesive whole. It was a soothing melody, an exchange of thoughts, an invitation to embrace. As the last note dissipated, silence enveloped the space, yet it was far from void. It was abundant, brimming with the kind of stillness that lingers after something divine. The audience remained silent at first, not from uncertainty, but from a deep sense of respect. Suddenly, one pair of hands clapped, followed by others, culminating in a resounding standing ovation. Not due to Elias's perfection, but rather his unwavering presence. Elias gazed outward, encountering familiar faces he had previously avoided. He was out in the open now. Camilla tightened her grip on his hand. Victor stepped ahead, lowered himself, and murmured a secret meant solely for Elias's ears. You returned her, if only for an instant. Thank you. Elias remained silent. There was no necessity for him to do so. His gaze sparkled with intensity, his spirit laid bare. For the first time in ages, the house exuded a sense of completeness. The applause had dwindled, yet the ensuing silence resonated with a weight that seemed to amplify the moment. The guests departed at a leisurely pace, with a sense of hesitation lingering in the air. Some hovered near the entrance, gently resting their hands on Elias' shoulder, murmuring words of admiration. A handful embraced Victor. A woman reached out, grasping Camilla's hand for a brief moment, silent yet expressive, her eyes glimmering with emotion. Once more, silence enveloped the house. The sunroom retained the lingering scent of lavender. The sheet music rested undisturbed on the stand. Elias lingered in his chair, gazing at the keys, not engaging, merely existing in the moment. Victor stepped in, cradling 2 steaming cups of cocoa. He passed one to Elias and took a seat next to him. "What are your thoughts and emotions?" Elias savored a sip. He was taken aback by the warmth. He expressed it plainly, empty. Yet in a positive sense, as if I've released something into the world and I'm uncertain about wanting it returned. Victor inclined his head with deliberation. That's the essence of dedicating yourself to something. Elias cast his gaze upon him. "Is that your role at the office?" Victor offered a subtle smile. "I don't do it all the time, but I'm eager to begin." A moment of silence lingered. Then Elias inquired, "Will she remain?" Victor understood exactly whom he was referring to. He remained silent. Camila lingered in the kitchen, meticulously folding the program in half, then in half once more and again, until it transformed into a tiny square nestled in her palm, a memento, or perhaps a farewell. She had intended to depart even prior to the recital. In her drawer lay a letter, a recommendation from a friend in Chicago, offering a part-time position at a music school. Something secure, something manageable, something within her grasp. She had composed the email weeks prior. It simply remained unsent. As Victor stepped inside, she remained facing away. He lingered in the doorway, uncertain of where to start. "I never expressed my gratitude," he admitted at last. She gave a slight nod. "You weren't obligated, yet I desire to." She folded the paper once more, this time with a tighter grip, as if it might disappear completely into her palm. She mentioned that she was about to leave. He remained silent, not out of desire, but out of a sense of obligation, as if healing is a fleeting state, never intended to endure. This meant to occur, then progress forward. Victor entered with a deliberate pace. "What if it doesn't need to progress?" he inquired. Camila pivoted to meet his gaze. "What is it that you want to know from me?" Victor inhaled deeply. "I'm inviting you to remain, not out of duty, not as part of a team, but as part of our family. What that signifies at this point is anyone's guess." Camila gazed at him, caught in a delicate balance between a smile and tears. "That's quite a significant question," she remarked. Indeed, he concurred. "However, everything you've accomplished here has been significant." Later that evening, Elias discovered Camila amidst the garden's embrace. The moon hung above, draping the rosemary and lilies in a shimmering silver glow. He maneuvered himself toward her, grasping an object in his hand. A page, the concluding notes of their melody. He passed it to her. "I want you to have it," he said. "No matter where you find yourself, our game continues on." Camila gazed at the page. In the corner, her name was inscribed, Camila Reyes. She knelt beside him, gently sweeping a strand of hair away from his forehead. "Thank you," she murmured. "However, I believe I may linger a bit more." Elias didn't just smile. He radiated joy. Victor lingered by the window, observing their movements. For the first time, the house felt free from the weight of memories. It felt abundant with them, the positive kind, the kind that linger. Spring arrived softly. The garden, previously frail and dormant, started to awaken once more. Lavender emerged first, resolute and fragrant. The lilies emerged, reaching out to a sky that had shed its grayness. Elias practiced each morning, though not always the entire composition. At times, it's merely a phrase, a line, or a solitary note sustained longer than necessary. As though relishing the moment, as though recalling the journey that led to this point. Victor had ceased to occupy the hallway. He settled into the sunroom next to Elias. At times, he flipped through the pages. At times, he struck a solitary note at the conclusion of a line, seeking a sense of belonging. At times, he simply absorbed the words around him. Camila remained. She chose not to unpack everything immediately. Her suitcase lingered half-zipped in the guest house for weeks, as if she hesitated to acknowledge her place there. Yet gradually, a scarf found its place on the back of a chair, a book settled on the kitchen counter, and a pair of old slippers was tucked neatly beside the door. She cultivated new herbs, not for culinary use, merely for the joy of nurturing them. One morning, Elias posed a question that had lingered in the back of his mind for quite some time. Do you believe I might perform for a larger audience in the future? Victor lifted his gaze from the steaming cup of coffee. Are you referring to a recital? Elias gave a slight shake of his head. A larger number, a live concert, an authentic stage. Camila arched an eyebrow, her smile hinting at a mischievous challenge. Are you suggesting that you're prepared for Carnegie Hall? Elias smiled broadly. Perhaps not at this moment, but eventually. Victor inclined his body, eager and attentive. If that's your desire, we'll bring it to fruition. Elias paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Would you accompany me? Victor remained unblinking. Each movement. Camila rested her hand softly on Elias' shoulder. You'll always have company on that stage. The room hushed, not devoid, but brimming. The composition they crafted lingered on the piano. It remained unframed, untouched by publication. It was unnecessary. It was theirs. They performed it frequently, not always flawlessly, but always in unison. At times, it's merely the initial gesture. At others, it's the conclusion. Yet, each time the final note resonated, they allowed it to hang in the air, embracing it. Allow it to gradually diminish, for they understood that certain melodies linger on. They linger in the hands that crafted them, in the spaces that embraced them, in the souls that yearned for them, and that was sufficient, more than sufficient.